Have you ever bought a beautiful bunch of fresh parsley, cilantro, or basil, only to find it wilted, slimy, or completely unusable just a few days later? If so, you're definitely not alone. Every year, millions of people throw away fresh herbs simply because they spoil before they have a chance to use them. It's frustrating, wasteful, and expensive. Fresh herbs aren't cheap, and they have the power to completely transform a meal from ordinary to restaurant quality with just a handful of leaves. But here's the good news. Keeping herbs fresh isn't about luck. It isn't about buying expensive storage containers or fancy kitchen gadgets. In fact, professional chefs use a few surprisingly simple techniques that can keep many herbs fresh for 1, 2, or even 3 weeks longer than usual. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how they do it. We'll cover why herbs spoil so quickly, the biggest mistakes almost everyone makes, the best storage method for every major herb, and even how to bring wilted herbs back to life when you think they're beyond saving. By the end of this video, you'll waste less food, save money on groceries, and always have vibrant, flavorful herbs ready whenever you cook. So let's get started. Why do fresh herbs go bad so fast? To understand how to keep herbs fresh, it helps to understand why they spoil in the first place. Fresh herbs are living plants. Even after they're harvested, they continue to breathe, lose moisture, and respond to their environment. Once separated from their roots, they slowly begin to dehydrate and break down. 4 main factors determine how quickly herbs spoil. First is moisture. Too much moisture encourages mold, bacteria, and slimy leaves. Too little moisture causes herbs to dry out and wilt. Finding the right balance is the secret. Second is temperature. Some herbs love cool temperatures. Others hate the cold and develop black leaves within hours if refrigerated incorrectly. Third is air circulation. Without enough airflow, moisture builds up. Too much airflow, however, dries herbs out quickly. Finally, there's ethylene gas. Many fruits, including apples, bananas, pears, peaches, avocados, and tomatoes, produce ethylene gas as they ripen. This invisible gas speeds up aging in nearby herbs. That's why storing herbs next to ripening fruit can shorten their lifespan dramatically. Once you understand these 4 enemies, too much water, too little water, incorrect temperature, and ethylene gas, you've already solved half the problem. The biggest mistakes most people make. Let's talk about the mistakes nearly everyone makes. The first mistake is leaving herbs inside the plastic bag from the grocery store. Those bags trap moisture. Condensation builds up. Soon the leaves become slimy. If you've ever opened a bag of parsley and found it covered in wet, mushy leaves, trapped moisture was almost certainly the reason. Another common mistake is washing herbs immediately after buying them. Many people think washing them right away makes them cleaner and ready to use. Actually, unless they're dried extremely well afterward, leftover moisture causes rapid decay. For most herbs, it's better to wash only what you'll use that day. If you do wash the whole bunch, drying becomes absolutely essential. Professional kitchens often use salad spinners because removing excess water dramatically extends freshness. No spinner. A clean kitchen towel or paper towels work surprisingly well. Another mistake is trimming nothing at all. Many herbs behave just like fresh flowers. Giving the stems a fresh cut helps them absorb water much more efficiently. A simple 1/4-inch trim can noticeably improve freshness. Another surprisingly common error is crushing herbs inside a crowded refrigerator drawer. Heavy vegetables placed on top of delicate herbs bruise the leaves. Bruised leaves quickly become dark, soft, and slimy. Always store herbs where they won't be squashed. Here's another mistake people rarely think about. Storing every herb exactly the same way. This simply doesn't work. Some herbs prefer refrigeration. Others prefer room temperature. Some love standing in water. Others rot if their stems stay wet too long. Treating every herb identically almost guarantees disappointing results. Not all herbs are the same. One of the biggest secrets professionals know is that herbs fall into two main categories. Understanding this changes everything. The first group is called tender herbs. These have soft stems and delicate leaves. Examples include parsley, cilantro, dill, mint, chervil, tarragon. These herbs lose moisture quickly and usually benefit from extra hydration. The second group is woody herbs. These include rosemary, thyme, sage, oregano, marjoram. Their stems are tougher. Their leaves naturally contain less water. Because of this, they generally last much longer and require different storage methods. Then there's one herb that refuses to follow the rules. Basil. Basil is unique. Although it has soft stems, it absolutely dislikes cold temperatures. Putting basil into a cold refrigerator often causes black leaves within a day or two. Instead, basil usually stays freshest at room temperature, just like a bouquet of flowers. Knowing which category your herbs belong to instantly helps you choose the correct storage method. Before you store anything, the first few minutes after bringing herbs home are incredibly important. Start by removing any rubber bands. Rubber bands squeeze stems and reduce water movement. Next, inspect the bunch carefully. Remove any yellow leaves. Discard damaged stems. Take away anything slimy. One bad leaf can quickly spread decay to healthy ones nearby. Then gently shake away loose dirt. If the herbs are already soaking wet from the grocery store's produce sprayer, pat them dry carefully with paper towels. Remember, you don't want dripping wet herbs before storage. Finally, trim the stem ends slightly. Think of arranging fresh flowers. Fresh cuts help herbs drink water more efficiently. These small preparation steps may only take 2 or 3 minutes, but they can add several extra days, or even an entire week, to the life of your herbs. And now that we've covered the science behind freshness and avoided the most common mistakes, it's time to get into the techniques that make the biggest difference. Now that you understand why herbs spoil and the mistakes that shorten their lifespan, it's time for the practical part, the storage methods that actually work. One important thing to remember is that there isn't a single perfect method for every herb. Each variety has slightly different needs, and making just one small adjustment can double or even triple its freshness. Let's start with one of the most common kitchen herbs, parsley. Parsley is surprisingly hardy when stored correctly. The first step is to trim about ½ inch off the stems. Next, fill a clean glass or small jar with about 1 to 2 inches of cool water. Place the parsley inside just like a bouquet of flowers. Now here's the trick many people don't know. Instead of sealing the herbs tightly, loosely cover the tops with a plastic bag. This creates a humid environment while still allowing some airflow. Store the jar in the refrigerator. Every 2 or 3 days, replace the water with fresh, cold water. If you notice any yellow leaves, remove them immediately. Using this method, parsley often stays fresh for 2 to 3 weeks instead of just a few days. Cilantro. Cilantro has a reputation for spoiling quickly, but it doesn't have to. Treat it almost exactly like parsley. Trim the stems. Place them in a glass with fresh water. Loosely cover the leaves. Keep the container in the refrigerator. The biggest difference is that cilantro appreciates slightly drier leaves. If the leaves become wet, gently pat them dry before returning them to storage. Changing the water regularly is especially important with cilantro. Clean water means healthier stems and longer-lasting leaves. Dill. Dill is much more delicate. Its feathery leaves bruise easily. After trimming the stems, place them in a small amount of water. Cover loosely. Store upright in the refrigerator. Avoid stacking anything on top of dill. Even a light container can flatten the leaves. With careful handling, dill can remain fresh for around 2 weeks. Mint. Mint is one of the easiest herbs to keep alive. Like parsley, it loves fresh water. Trim the stems. Stand the bunch upright in a jar. Loosely cover the leaves. Refrigerate. Replace the water every few days. Mint often continues producing tiny new leaves while stored this way. Properly cared for, Fresh mint can easily last 2 to 3 weeks. Basil. Now let's talk about the herb that confuses almost everyone. Basil. Many people automatically place basil in the refrigerator. Unfortunately, basil dislikes cold temperatures. The leaves often turn black. The flavor declines. The texture becomes unpleasant. Instead, treat basil exactly like fresh flowers. Trim the stems. Place them in a glass with room temperature water. Leave the glass on your kitchen counter. Keep it away from direct sunlight. Don't place it near bananas, tomatoes, or apples because of ethylene gas. If your kitchen is extremely hot, basil may need fresh water every day. Otherwise, replacing the water every 2 days is usually enough. One important note. Do not completely seal basil inside a plastic bag at room temperature. It needs airflow. With proper care, basil often stays vibrant for well over a week and sometimes close to 2 weeks. Rosemary. Rosemary behaves very differently. Its woody stems naturally hold moisture well. Instead of standing rosemary in water, wrap it loosely inside a barely damp paper towel. Place the wrapped stems inside a reusable storage bag or an open plastic bag. Store it in the refrigerator. The towel should feel slightly damp, not wet. Too much moisture encourages mold. Rosemary stored this way commonly stays fresh for 3 weeks or even longer. Thyme. Thyme is one of the longest-lasting herbs. Because its leaves are tiny and its stems are woody, it doesn't lose moisture quickly. Wrap it gently in a dry or slightly damp paper towel. Place it inside a storage container or bag. Refrigerate. Avoid crushing the stems beneath heavier foods. Many cooks find thyme still perfectly usable after 3 weeks. Sage. Sage also has sturdy, slightly fuzzy leaves. Those fuzzy surfaces trap moisture easily. For this reason, never store sage dripping wet. Wrap it in a paper towel. Place it inside a partially open storage bag. Refrigerate. Check once every few days. If condensation appears, replace the paper towel with a fresh, dry one. Oregano and marjoram. These herbs require very little attention. Simply wrap them loosely in a dry paper towel. Store them inside a container or storage bag. Keep them refrigerated. Because their leaves naturally contain aromatic oils, they stay fresh surprisingly well. Many bunches remain usable for several weeks. Chives. Chives dry out much faster than many people expect. Wrap them gently inside a slightly damp paper towel. Store them in a sealed container or reusable bag in the refrigerator. Avoid bending or folding them sharply. Keeping the stems straight helps preserve their crisp texture. The paper towel method. If using jars of water isn't practical, there's another excellent option. Professional kitchens often use what's called the paper towel method. Here's how it works. Lightly dampen a paper towel. It should feel barely moist, not soaking wet. Lay the herbs flat. Roll them gently inside the towel. Place the roll inside a storage container or zip-top bag. Don't squeeze out all the air. A small amount of air circulation helps prevent excess moisture buildup. Store the container in the refrigerator. This method works especially well for parsley, cilantro, dill, chives, mint. Check the towel every few days. If it becomes too wet, replace it. If it dries completely, lightly dampen a new one. Should you use special herb keepers? You may have seen expensive herb storage containers advertised online. Do they actually work? The answer is yes, but only to a point. Most herb keepers simply recreate the same conditions we've already discussed. They provide fresh water, stable humidity, gentle airflow, protection from crushing. They're convenient, especially if you buy herbs frequently. However, they aren't necessary. A clean drinking glass, a mason jar, paper towels, and a storage bag can produce nearly identical results for a fraction of the cost. So if you're on a budget, don't worry. The simple methods we've covered today are exactly what many professional chefs use every day. But what happens if you bought far more herbs than you can possibly use? Should you freeze them? Can you dry them without losing flavor? And is it really possible to revive herbs that have already wilted? So far, we've learned why herbs spoil, how to avoid the biggest storage mistakes, and the best way to keep each type of herb fresh. But what if you've bought more herbs than you can use before they begin to age? The good news is that you don't have to throw them away. Fresh herbs can be preserved for months while still retaining much of their flavor and aroma. In this final section, I'll show you the easiest and most effective methods. Freeze your herbs the right way. Freezing is one of the best ways to preserve herbs, but many people do it incorrectly. A common mistake is tossing an entire bunch into the freezer. The herbs freeze into one solid block, become covered with ice crystals, and are difficult to use later. Instead, start by washing and thoroughly drying the herbs. Remove any damaged leaves and trim away thick or woody stems if needed. For herbs like parsley, cilantro, dill, and chives, chop them into the size you normally use for cooking. Spread the chopped herbs in a single layer on a baking tray or plate lined with parchment paper. Freeze them for 1 to 2 hours. Once frozen, transfer them to a freezer-safe bag or airtight container. This keeps the pieces separate, allowing you to take only what you need. Properly stored, frozen herbs can maintain good quality for 6 to 12 months. While they won't have the same crisp texture as fresh herbs, they're excellent for soups, sauces, casseroles, and cooked dishes. Make herb ice cubes. One of the smartest tricks professional cooks use is freezing herbs in oil or water. Finely chop your herbs and place them into an ice cube tray. Fill each compartment with olive oil for recipes such as pasta, roasted vegetables, or sautéed dishes. Alternatively, use water if you plan to add the herbs to soups or stews. Freeze the tray until solid. Then transfer the cubes to a freezer bag. Now, whenever you're cooking, simply drop a cube directly into the pan. As it melts, it releases both the herbs and the oil, creating instant flavor with almost no preparation. It's convenient, reduces waste, and saves time on busy evenings. Drying herbs at home. Some herbs are even better when dried. Rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, marjoram, and mint dry exceptionally well because they contain less moisture. Gather several stems into small bundles and tie them loosely with string. Hang them upside down in a warm, dry, well-ventilated place away from direct sunlight. Depending on humidity, drying usually takes 1 to 3 weeks. You'll know they're ready when the leaves crumble easily between your fingers. Remove the leaves from the stems and store them in airtight glass jars. Keep the jars in a cool, dark cupboard. For the best flavor, try to use dried herbs within a year. Although they remain safe beyond that, their aroma gradually fades over time. Can you revive wilted herbs? Sometimes herbs look beyond saving, but appearances can be deceiving. If the leaves are wilted but not slimy or moldy, there's a good chance they can recover. Trim a small piece from the bottom of each stem. Fill a bowl with ice water. Place the herbs into the water for 15 to 30 minutes. As the stems absorb moisture, the leaves often become crisp again. This trick works especially well for parsley, cilantro, dill, and mint. However, if the herbs have turned black, smell sour, or feel slimy, it's best to discard them. No storage trick can reverse spoilage. Signs your herbs have gone bad. Knowing when to throw herbs away is just as important as knowing how to store them. Discard herbs if you notice a sour, fermented, or unpleasant smell, slimy stems or leaves, thick mold or fuzzy growth, black, mushy patches, excessive decay spreading through the bunch. On the other hand, slightly wilted herbs are often still perfectly usable after a quick ice water bath. Buy smarter to reduce waste. One of the easiest ways to keep herbs fresh is to start with the freshest bunch possible. When shopping, look for bright green leaves, firm stems, no yellowing, no slimy spots, no strong or unpleasant odor. Avoid bunches with excessive moisture inside the package. Condensation often means the herbs have already begun to deteriorate. If possible, buy herbs from local farmers markets or harvest them from your own garden, as They're usually fresher than herbs that have spent days in transport. Grow a few herbs at home. If you cook regularly, growing herbs yourself is one of the best investments you can make. Many herbs thrive in containers on a sunny windowsill or balcony. Easy choices include basil, parsley, chives, mint, thyme, rosemary, oregano. Instead of storing large bunches, you simply harvest what you need. The herbs stay alive until you're ready to use them, providing the freshest flavor possible, while reducing waste. Quick recap. Let's review the most important tips from today's video. Treat parsley, cilantro, mint, and dill like fresh flowers by placing their stems in water. Keep basil at room temperature, not in the refrigerator. Store woody herbs such as rosemary and thyme wrapped in a slightly damp paper towel. Remove damaged leaves as soon as you notice them. Replace storage water every few days. Keep herbs away from ethylene-producing fruits like bananas, apples, and tomatoes. Freeze extra herbs before they spoil. Dry woody herbs for long-term storage. Revive wilted herbs with an ice water bath. Buy only the freshest herbs available whenever possible. Following just these simple habits can dramatically reduce food waste and help your herbs stay fresh for days, or even weeks, longer. Fresh herbs may seem delicate, but once you understand what they need, keeping them fresh becomes incredibly easy. A few extra minutes of care when you bring them home can save money, reduce waste, and make every meal taste brighter and more flavorful. Instead of throwing away wilted bunches every week, you'll always have fresh herbs ready for salads, soups, pasta, roasted vegetables, grilled meats, homemade sauces, and countless other recipes. If you found these tips helpful, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves cooking or gardening. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we share practical gardening, food preservation, and kitchen tips that help you save money, reduce waste, and get the very best from your home and garden. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.